All right, welcome back to The Devil in Detail, the Grendel Reread podcast. I'm Eli.
I'm Ben, Vivat Grendel. It's big episode 31.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
in a great transitional episode. We've got two terrific Wagnerian guests coming on today as we wrap up all the appetizers and tapas courses that you can imagine and get ready to dig into the absolute main course masterpiece. Behold the Devil,
Behold the Devil.
the ultimate Hunter Rose tale. Can't get
Yes,
enough.
absolutely. And this came out a little bit later. I mean, this, I think, started in 2003 or 2000, maybe 4 or 5 when Behold started.
Maybe even later, 2008, I think.
Oh, really?
Perhaps. I think it's 2008. I'm not totally sure.
All right.
Because the anthologies wrap up in the early aughts,
True.
and I think that there was some time off doing a lot of writing.
I'll put the correct year right here.
Sting it, baby.
But yeah, we've got Matt and Brennan coming out here in just a moment. I'm excited. But first, what have you been up to, Ben? What's been up this week?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I've
Oh.
been penciling this week. I am 7 pages into penciling my new book, Mystic Connecticut, which I am a hired gun on.
Nice.
And when I come on, I've been really lucky with my comics freelancing in that the people that I'm working with are typically friends of mine and they value my storytelling input. And so the process is that we go through very heavy and detailed layout phases so that they can see exactly what they've written, and we can workshop as needed so that by the time it's ready to get into the actual art, there's no surprises. And
Nice.
typically what happens in that layout process, I've said this before, is that I'll hit a groove or I'll be like, all right, they're gonna dig this, or what they've written works quite well. And so I'll just end up penciling it. So I'm 7 pages into that. And in a few more pages, I'm gonna hit that batch of content where it's basically penciled. So I'll be like, oh, pages 11 through 16, minor corrections, and then I'm done. So that's a very good feeling.
Nice.
I read a shit ton. I'm currently reading 4 books at once.
What?
That's just how I want to do it. That's how my ADD wants to operate. I'm currently in the middle of this big Elric book.
Oh,
This
very
is
nice.
This is 1/3 of the core Elric cycle, sort of. Now, you ordered this book, except it's the British version from Millennium Publishing.
Oh,
This is
okay.
the White Wolf Publishing Eternal Champion series. This is the 5th volume of Moorcock's Eternal Champion series.
Very nice.
And so Michael Moorcock is sort of becoming 250 pages in. He's becoming one of my favorite authors. And when you sort of see the scope and the structure of his work, it's really mind blowing. So yeah, I'm excited to get Mo into Moorcock. So I'm reading that one. I'm reading the second Brandon Sanderson Stormlight Archive book right now. The thing with these books, I showed you these off, is that they're illustrated by 4 different artists.
Yeah.
Including legendary cover artist Michael Whalen, who is most famous for his Elric work.
Oh, wow.
I first saw him on this bad boy, on this H.P. Lovecraft Del Rey compendium.
Oh, wow.
So Whalen's just one of 4 artists, and they do things like the inserts will be people's sketchbooks. Like one of the main characters has like super drawing powers. Anyway, so there's lots of art in there. So that's 2
great.
out of the 4 books I'm reading, and then I'm 20% into the first Wheel of Time book.
Dang.
So, which is okay. There's 14 of them. I don't think I'm gonna read all of them.
How do you keep it all straight in your brain, man?
Because my brain wants to shift gears every chapter.
Oh, okay.
It's not a question of keeping it straight. It's like, how do you watch 5 TV shows at once?
Yeah, true.
Right?
Jeez. Yeah, you just know.
Anyway, that's my long-winded week. What I'm hoping is that we can in the format of this week, maybe we can start showing off some artwork and stuff as it's in process.
Definitely, man.
Some bidney. What'd you do this week?
Well, I'm continuing working on my Weapon Ech pages. You can see them right there.
Yes.
I'm finishing a page for Image Grand Disaster, the image grand design stuff that we're working on
Nice.
with a ton of amazing people. And I'll tell you what, without further ado, I'm not going to blather on here. I got the Ween Zine almost ready, but the first of our major guests is with us right now. So please, everyone, welcome Matt Wagner.
I was going to say, whoever could it be?
All right, Matt,
you're
welcome.
connected.
Hey, lads.
How's it going? Very well.
We're good,
Welcome.
Ben, you got a little snow, huh?
just a touch.
How much?
It feels like 4 to 6, perhaps.
Inches?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad.
How much? That's a rather, yeah. So yeah, it's good. We went in the backyard.
Enough to fuck things up.
Well, I don't leave the house. I mean, I don't know if you can tell by my tan. I don't leave the house.
It's a snow tan, buddy. It's a snow tan.
Yeah, right. So yeah, it's very generous of you. In college, they called it the animator's tan, but I'm not an animator. So yeah,
I saw on Facebook, Steve Bissett posted a photo of like his garage door, and it seemed like it was like almost half covered of snow. Jeez.
Where I grew up in the middle of Pennsylvania, we were in a valley, and it would snow and it would drift, and then the top would freeze over. So when I was a kid, I could walk around all over. You know, there'd be like 1.5 feet of snow, and I could walk right over top of it. You know.
Yeah. I love that in Maryland
too. It would drift up over my swing set. I could walk over top of my swing set. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great for.
I was a kid, and we were snowed in. And I watched The Blob on TV, and scared the piss out of me. I must have been 7 or 8, something like that. But in the movie, they defeat the Blob by freezing him. So I remember thinking, like, I'm okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Brennan Wagner as well.
Hey, Brenny, we were just discovering the little white coating you guys got there.
Oh yeah, it's actually melting on us right now.
Is it
already?
So just as quickly and as horribly as it came, it is now gone. Eli, I love your shirt.
Thank you.
It's a good one.
Themed.
It's a good one.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we figured that we would just let you guys talk. We don't really.
Nah,
I mean, it's like, what's the, you guys are here.
I sure miss the snow. I got to be honest. As much as the heat and the beautiful mountains is, you don't miss it at all, Matt.
I'm in a period in my life where I've said this to my wife over and over again. If I never have to experience snow ever again, I'll die happy.
And Pop, there's not projected to be any in Portland this year?
No, not so far.
No.
It's been fairly warm. I just got back from swimming, so.
Sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah, my wife and I both swim in an outdoor pool for exercise. We have a year-round heated outdoor pool at our club.
Oh, nice.
And sometimes it's really cold, but they keep the pool at right around 80, so it's great.
I love that. You get out of the pool and you're steaming. You're like just a smoke. Yeah, that's great. You can feel like, and yes, this is a great segue, the shadow coming from the shadows.
Oh,
perfect.
Eli, this was so fucking serendipitous. I got something cool here to send you guys. So I think I've spoken to you guys before about when I was in art school in Philadelphia. We had this in-school newspaper called Duckwork, right? Yes. And I did duck cartoons. So out of the blue today, this guy sends me this. Hey, do you remember this sketch from 1981? And I just sent it to you guys, and it's the Shad Duck.
Oh, perfect.
I feel like you've shown this to me before.
No, I didn't remember it at all. Here, Brent, I didn't send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Oh wow, we'll put it on the screen here for the guys.
Yeah, just do that.
Great.
Do that. Yeah.
I told you I found a big.
You can't see it very well from that screen, but instead of going ha ha ha, he's going wah 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 like a duck, like he's quacking.
Great.
I found a big repository of all those online on like the college's website. There's just years of them. Yeah, I'm fairly certain. And I remember I pulled out a couple of your comics and I sent them to you.
No. That was from the first college I went to. I went to 2 different colleges.
Oh, okay.
This is when I went to the Philadelphia College of Art. I'd be totally surprised if they have that shit up online.
Oh yeah. My dad went to the Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science. Is that near there? No.
Probably not. The college later merged with a performing arts college, so now it's called the Philadelphia, I think, No, University of the Arts.
Ah. Unfortunately, his college was changed to Philadelphia University and now goes by PU.
Oh.
Why would you do that? All right, anyway.
Portland, dude. We have a Portland University that's PU.
Oh, you do? Oh, man, come on. Oh, man. Okay, well, let's start off here with The Shadow. We just got done talking with Brennan for 2 weeks and reading into Grendel versus The Shadow. And Matt, we spent a lot of time chatting with you offline about The Shadow and how much you love it.
My crazy obsession with The Shadow, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I'm interested first in like how that, like where that came from. Is that like a childhood obsession?
Well, it was kind of a perfect storm. So my parents were World War II generation, right? So they grew up in those days, and they used to tell me about, everybody gathering around the radio instead of the TV at night to listen to shows. And, The Shadow was a very popular show. But right when I was about 12, DC started running ads for their launch of The Shadow in the 70s, written by Denny O'Neil and drawn by Michael William Kaluta. And I really didn't know much about the character, but here was this character, and he's pointing guns at you. And you got to remember, in those days, comic book heroes didn't wield guns, So it was a very strange image, and I thought, Jesus, what is that? I became very intrigued with it. And so then that came out. I started picking those up. Those were great. But around the same time, you could pick up the Radio Adventures on LP, on vinyl. So I started picking up some of those. And then it was about a year later that a small imprint, I forget who owned them, some bigger publishing company owned them, but a group called Pyramid Books started re-releasing all the pulp novels with these gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous Jim Steranko painted covers.
Yeah.
So again, I had, just like this triple dose of The Shadow when I was very impressionable, all in the space of a couple of years. And I obviously dig, lone Avengers sneaking around in the dark with cloaks on, and he fit that to the T, So yeah, from there on, I just kept digging up stuff for a while. There were other older, if you look around online, you can find some older hardcover reprints. I picked up those. I must have had probably a dozen LPs at one point.
Nice. I picked up one on eBay this week. Actually.
Yeah.
I was like,
and again, getting to read the original pulp novels really sunk in hard, because of course they're they're not very long, so they're very consumable for a kid that age, and they're much more they have a much more dense portrayal of the Shadow than the comics would, of course, But I will say Denny O'Neil did a really good job at adapting that persona and portraying it in comics. Because of course that version of the Shadow is different than the radio version. The radio show came 6 years after the premiere of the pulp. The pulp became so popular, the radio version eventually came around, and they changed it in the radio to where he had the power to cloud men's minds. So he was invisible. And, that's, when you think about it, that's a really brilliant thing, to have this invisible hero on what is essentially an invisible medium, So everything revolved around, his spooky voice and his spooky laugh and everything. And when a character's, the Shadow laughs and, some bad guy goes, "Oh, the Shadow's here." As a listener at home, it felt like it was right there in your living room with you,
Right.
But Denny O'Neil cleaved really, really close to the pulp version, where he does not turn invisible.
Right.
And Dad, that's my wife and I. We just watched the old version of the Invisible Man and the new Elizabeth Moss version of the Invisible Man, and I was thinking the whole time, like, it's a similar thing. It's an economical, just sort of vantage point that you put your story on, because you don't have to show the character, and a lot of it's in the mind of the audience. You're letting your mind fill in where the guy is in the room. He can be doing anything in your head,
That original Invisible Man is really cool, and the graphics for the time, the special effects are amazing. Is that what you're talking about? Like the original?
In fact, if you look online too, speaking of Jim Steranko did a very famous cover on, I think it was Tales to Chill, or something like that. Did a very famous
Chamber of
cover of The Invisible
Shadows?
Man that's looks like it's just a straight illustration from the James Whale film from the 30s.
Oh wow.
I like all the practical like fishing line wire effects in that film, where like they're pulling a broom or like pulling a bike along, or
Yep.
What about the lady who runs the inn? All she does is scream. Her reaction for every single thing. She's like, ah!
She was a famous. I forget her name. She was a famous character actor at the time. She's in both, and James Whale loved her. The director loved her. She's in both Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you said that when I was watching Unpop. That's right.
And she's in the Errol Flynn Adventures of Robin Hood. She plays Maid Marian's kind of lady in waiting. You know,
her chambermaid.
Huh?
Her chambermaid, right?
Chambermaid, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dang.
Matt, do you?
And she's flamboyant in that one too, right? She's crazy in the Robin Hood thing.
He's always pretty wired as shit. Yeah, you have to imagine that wasn't too far from the kind of typecasting, you know.
Set a standard for screams. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
It's a very small like brotherhood of comics creators who've worked on this character. Do you, between Jake and Steranko and Denny O'Neil and whomever else, do you guys like compare notes or say, well, my version is kind of based on this and that, yours is this and that? Is there, it's such a small group of people.
Well, bigger now, of course, Dynamite did a whole bunch with it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as my version goes, I felt like I had to, the shadow purists consider the pulps to be the gold standard. But you have to recognize how popular the radio version was and how ubiquitous, and then, as I started to do my version, I realized that there was a certain amount of my readership that would only know it from the Alec Baldwin movie. And truthfully, that's got some good shit in it. It's
we talked about it on the last episode of the one before.
The tone's completely uneven. Sometimes it gets goofball. Yeah. But I really like the aspect of the fact that he had a dark past that he had to overcome. In the aftermath of World War I, I considered him part of the lost generation. Everybody was so scarred, physically scarred, mentally scarred by that war, that he drifted east and got into some bad shit before kind of setting himself aright and coming back to the States. And it's funny I should say that because in some of the original pulp novels, it's implied Gibson eventually dropped this aspect, but it's implied that he has a really severe facial wound in real life. There's a scene where somebody captures him and unmasks him and says, well, the secret of the shadow, the man with 1,000 faces has no face of his own. As if, I don't know, if you look around online too, you can find pictures of survivors from World War I with horrific facial injuries. Again, I think that ultimately proved to be a little too grotesque for his hero, so he eventually dropped that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a real Phantom of the Opera vibe there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you were a fan of Boardwalk Empire, but there was a character on it who had a really severe facial injury and wore a pair of glasses that then had a piece of painted tin painted to look like flesh and an eye, a fake eye, to cover up what was basically just a missing chunk of his skull right here.
Yeah, that's very funny because I actually teach Richard Harrow's first kill, that 30-second segment, my storyboarding class, and it audio bridges into a screening of the Phantom of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In the sequence. Another vibe that I was picking up super heavy in reading your Shadow Year One was just like a Don Draper, Dick Whitman, Mad Men vibe.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I couldn't stop imagining John Hamm playing this character.
Well, that's he'd make a great one, yeah. But that's in the books. It's revealed pretty early on that in the books that he is not Lamont Cranston. Lamont Cranston is an actual guy. He's an actual millionaire, but he's a world traveler. He's a hunter. He's a big game hunter. So he's gone a lot, and he's gone in places of the world where he's not in contact with photographers or anything like that. And the Shadow basically just assumes his identity and uses his mansion when he's out of town. He's got a few other identities he uses as well. One is a fellow named Henry Arnault, But after about 6 or 7 years, Gibson finally revealed that his real identity is a fellow named Kent Allard, who was a famous World War I ace, who during the war was so brave and so daring that he was known as the Dark Eagle by the enemies.
Wow.
Because he flew night missions.
And you
Yesterday
you
you posted.
Yeah.
Say it again, Bertie. Sorry.
You put that in year 1 a little bit in the flashback.
Yep. Oh yeah, quite a bit. Yeah. Yep. And and we get into him assuming Lamont's identity. So.
I think yesterday you posted a Moon Knight drawing on Facebook, and it seems like that character has a little bit of this multiple identity.
Yeah, except his is a neurosis. The shadows. The shadows is deliberate. It's subterfuge. In fact, God, for years and years and years, Adam Kubert's been trying to hook up something with the two of us, me writing something for him, and it's just never panned out. And the last go around was him really wanting me to write him a Moon Knight series. And man, I just couldn't get my head around the multiple personality disorder thing. Yeah. And so I inquired to Marvel and said, look, can I treat this like the Shadow, that it's not multiple personality disorder, that it's he just adopts a different identity when he needs it for his purposes? And the answer was no. He's got multiple personality disorder. That's set in stone. So whatever.
Garth Ennis' work on that, I think, was pretty good. The kind of recent Moon Knight, they did it kind of interestingly, where it was like this whole kind of alternate reality in his mind that was going on. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen those, so I'll have to check those out, because I do like the character. It's a cool thing, But yeah, great design.
Now, in the 70s, I saw that there was a Batman The Shadow crossover, and I guess
there were two. Both written by Denny O'Neil, and in one Batman later acknowledges to the Shadow the role the Shadow had in his creation, which is, of course, is a nod towards the fact that Batman's a big ripoff of the Shadow,
right?
In general. I'll get to that in a second here, but there was a scene in a hospital or something where they're there, and his dad, of course, was a doctor, and the Shadow busts something up and takes down these bad guys, and Bruce is young Bruce is kind of cowering on the floor, scared of the gunshots, and the Shadow reaches down takes his hand and picks him up, and of course that had an indelible effect on young Bruce. But
nice. So it was more than just the bats outside the window. It was the effect of
well, in that version anyway.
Yeah, and we've seen Hunter do that
speaking
too.
Of the actual creation of the character, I don't know if any of you are aware that the very first Batman story that ran in Detective Comics number 27, which is called The Case of the Chemical Syndicate, is a direct ripoff of a Shadow adventure called Partners in Peril. And it's not inspired by, it's a and if you look around online, you can find, Bob Kane obviously had the pulp open in front of him and was drawing shit from the pulp. There's a whole scene with a big like chemical vat that comes down over a guy as a trap, and that's exact, even down to the little dials, the little pressure dials look exactly the same,
Wow.
You're really shattering my impression of Bob Kane. My God.
Yeah. Yep.
Him and Stan are up there. Now, I know, okay, so then you saw those crossovers back then. I'm sure you enjoyed both of the characters very much. Were you ever thinking that, like, one day I want to create a character inspired by these characters? And then, like, how did you breach the topic of crossing them over? And is there any other character that you would want to like cross over more with, Grendel or Shadow?
Well, I would say that the creation of Grendel. I obviously have a flair and a fondness for that style of character. Like I said, kind of the lone adventure with a dashing sort of elan to them.
Right.
Dressed in black. Obviously it's a nod to Zorro, the fact that he carries a bladed weapon,
Carves the G in people.
Yeah. And if you look at the work I did for Dynamite, it was me kind of like rolling through my bucket list of the characters I loved as a kid. So, it's right. To equate it to music, it's a band doing an album of their favorite covers, of the stuff that inspired them.
Like the shadow and the spirit.
Yeah, and the shadow was the end of that bucket list. The shadow was the last one I got to do. And then Joe Rybant, my editor at Dynamite, brought it up to me, said, hey, is there any chance we could do a crossover with Grendel?
Oh, sick.
And after the Batman Grendel crossover, I got approached for a lot of crossovers. That's a fairly well thought of crossover.
Joe's a big Grendel fan, right? He's got like some.
Yes, Joe's a Grendel tattoo, in fact. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But over the years, I've been approached for a lot of crossovers on Grendel, and my attitude was just like, well, where do I go from Batman? I mean, you can't go much up the ladder, after that.
Yeah.
Till it was suggested to do the Shadow, and that's maybe not more popular character than Batman, but obviously is as dear in my heart as Batman is or was.
Right.
So no, I don't really feel like there's nothing else on the list that would, because again, I don't really, I remember in one of the casts you did, Ben referred to these crossovers as a cash grab, and that's what they tend to be, but I've never approached them that way in my creative approach to it. But so I wouldn't be doing it just for a cash grab. It would have to be something that would inspire me, and nothing left after doing those two,
Yeah.
But, so we can imagine you rejecting Grendel Wildcats or something like that, like
along those lines.
Along those lines, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I won't get specific.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to peek in anybody's face, but
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Quite a few.
They sound great.
Yeah.
So was Death of Margot Lane or Grendel the Shadow, was that some of the first professional work that you guys worked together on?
Bren, was Margot the first?
No, Death of Margot is after Grendel Shadow, is after Year One, is after Django Zorro.
No, I meant of my stuff.
Like
It's after this. It's after Grendel versus Shadow.
Right. It is after Grendel versus Shadow? Okay. All right. Yep. So Grendel versus Shadow then was the first page-to-page continuity of mine you colored, right? You'd done a bunch of covers at that point. But...
I had done a short Rocketeer thing. that kind of got the nicks.
Thing, yeah.
There's a unsavory tale attached to that doesn't need to be repeated. And turn this so my wife doesn't get yeah, but that might have been it, actually.
I think it was, yeah. Mm-hmm. You did my covers for Year One, but that was the first page-to-page continuity.
The covers for Year One, and right around the same time that we were doing at the exact same time that we were doing Grendel versus Shadow, you were writing Django Zorro. And I was coloring that while Esteve was drawing it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I was having to do a lot of work back then. That was the most work I've ever pumped out monthly. That's why there's probably a lot of more shortcuts in those books than I have in my more recent work.
Mm-hmm.
But I was doing your covers on that too. So there was but yeah, I think
very full slate. Yep.
Yeah. But
so when did things like move from like I'm a dad putting my son to work to like we're two creatives working together on like a project?
You mean when did it start to get, hey motherfucker, where are those pages?
Yeah. Or I mean like
I don't know, Brennan, when did it get to be that?
Day one.
Yeah.
That's
well,
great.
I mean, truthfully, I felt that was important. That was the way I had to, I had to approach it. It had to be, I had to treat him like somebody that's working with me and for me,
right.
Not coddle him as my kid,
Right.
Yeah, but the truth is, my relationship working with you, Pop, will never be the same as working with anybody else.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
So
in fact, I'm going to be harder on you than your other collaborators would be,
Right.
Yep. Well, and when other people are far more willing to cut ties than my old man,
Matt, you've talked about.
Brady, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Brady, tell them the story about the first scene there of Year One, which you.
Oh yeah.
Remember.
Yeah, that's. So the first scene of Year One is like set in a burning Cambodian village. The Shadow's past as he's he's working for some.
No, he's working for himself, but he's pursuing a bad guy that later becomes Dr. Zorn.
Right, that's right. It's in a burning Cambodian village. It's supposed to be at night. It's supposed to be very chaotic and hot. And I went to a coffee shop one day, and I sat down with my laptop, and I cranked out 3 pages in one sitting. Boom! I thought I was doing so good, and I sent him off, and he responded to me, and he kind of tore him to pieces. He said they looked like it looked as if they were hanging out at McDonald's, when in fact it was supposed to be, again, the chaotic, burning Cambodian village. So so I kind of broke down a little bit, and it really got to me, and I had to recolor them all.
I don't remember telling him this at all, but it obviously sunk in hard to some place. I will say he recolored it and it looked a lot better.
Yeah, they look a lot better. Every time he's told me to recolor something or whatever, it's been for the benefit. And you know what? As resilient as I am to corrections or criticism post, having colored an entire page of work, even with other people, in general, when I'm willing to work with someone and accept their notes for criticism and then kind of change and adapt, the final product is always better, because it always helps to tell the story and get that end product out. And
I will point out too, these days there's really never any of that between you and me. There's occasionally I'll go, hey, we need a little switch here, but I generally just let him roll, and he comes up with. I'm always just thrilled when he comes up with shit that I didn't imagine. Or we just finished the upcoming 5th issue of Grendel Devil's Odyssey, and Brennan chose a color palette for this. He's on a certain planet, and he chose a color palette for it that was not what I had in mind at all, and it looks just terrific. It's again, those surprises are always a great thrill about working with any colorist, but especially working with him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm always trying to mix it up these days.
What? Say it again.
I'm always trying to mix it up these days.
Yeah, well, especially with that one, because we're going from planet to planet, so it really needs to, and you're pulling that off very well.
Did you say you had a date on that yet? We thought it was
April.
Okay, cool.
April. Hey. I think they're soliciting in June. Yep. And I just turned in my pitch for the next one. So hopefully be starting that shortly after the turn of the new year. So
awesome. Yes. Cool, Ben. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, sorry, Ben. You had a question there, and we veered way hard.
So many things. Well, I mean, it's always the difference between working with someone you have a relationship with versus like assembly line is huge. Color has always been like a big part of your work, Matt, whether it's wanting to be on the blue line cutting edge or flying people from Philadelphia to the West Coast and living every day with Joe Matt and all that stuff, to seeing Dark Horse reprints getting digitally recolored, and now the two of you are doing it's like this with what Eli and I refer to as like the master era, because the work has never looked better, and you guys are hitting on cylinders that you just can't get when you're not talking about like a legacy collaboration. And I thought a lot about these. There's I don't know, the Ramitas and the Bodis and Samas and all these different intergenerational collaborators, but this one seems to be really unique for a lot of reasons. You've talked in other interviews about not there's like this parenting thing where like if you push the kid too far in one direction, they might bounce back in the other. So just like your studio's in the house, Brennan's in the house, he's growing up in the studio, sort of by just like, oh, it's very cool what you're into, you're pretty good. This kind of blossomed seemingly pretty naturally. I was wondering if you guys could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian. You talk about that, because I will say I felt just like Ben said there. I felt like I never really tried to push you towards comics. I knew you wanted to do something visual, but you toyed around with several directions before going here.
Sort of the question of my upbringing, I guess. And when it comes to my upbringing in a suburban environment like that, it was cool. I mean, like, it was cool. And Pop, you like good stuff. So that helps. You don't like bad stuff. So the basement being filled with like exceptional work, exceptional comics, it's hard to not get into it. I'm surprised Amanda never did, because it just seemed easy to get into. And I don't know, maybe that's what it is. Just
Yeah, he's
easy
referring
kind
to
of
the fact
flow
that
into
my
it.
other child, his sister, Amanda, doesn't read comics at all, doesn't give a shit about comics, has no interest in the least.
Yeah.
That's the younger child rebellion that I can.
But Bren, you you toyed around for a while there with, maybe I'll go into photography. You toyed around with
Well, and every good artist probably needs some experience with other stuff, ceramics or whatever. You got to experiment with other art to
yeah.
when
I was in art school, no matter what your major was, my major was illustration, but you had to take classes outside of your major. You had to take ceramics, like you said. You had to take something else just because they just felt like it broadened you, and it did.
Yeah, and I always, when I was at that stage, and I was in around the end of high school, beginning of college, I had the ability to picture myself going many different ways, one of which was photography. I even dabbled with sculpture, and I thought about graphic design as a path, like full in graphic design, because I love color and I love design. And I'm good with computers, kinda. But comic books are always going to be at my heart. And I think my mind just kind of works in sequential images. I'm able to, I don't know that I'd be the best at color grading a film, for example, but I know how to color paste a comic book because I grew up reading an obsessive amount of them. And I think once you get enough of that in your head, you kind of know what to look for. And I talked to you guys on the last episode about reading comics and seeing the way that they were colored, and sort of seeing some are colored better than others, but in general, I think I could color this pretty good. I could enhance this in a similar way. And then discovering Dave Stewart's colors really helped me to see how to effectively color something and in mass quantity. I talked about those BPRDs, those Hellboy compendiums. So, being able to see all that allowed me to picture, I guess, a career path for myself. I can do that. I can see how he does that. I can see how it enhances his art. I can see how he does it to my father's art, because Dave was coloring your art, Pop, for many years. And so all of that just kind of made. Yeah. I still look at a bunch of Dave's stuff on your art for inspiration today. I think I mentioned these guys, Monster Men. That run was hugely influential for me. The way that Dave was able to just change up color palettes every scene to really distinguish moments.
Yeah, I've always talked about Dave's effect as a colorist is that he makes it look like the artist colored it. He makes it look like the guy that drew it colored it too. It just looks like it ought to look. And he doesn't approach my stuff or Darwin Cook's stuff or Mignola's stuff in the same way. It just always looks like it should look.
Yeah.
But you were talking about there about the effect. Brennan said, growing up the way he did. I'll never forget when he was quite young. He was in grade school and he came home one time, and in his notebook he had this whole big adventure of him and his friends as little superheroes running around doing shit. And it was all like a big letter of their first name. So he was a big B with a little cape on.
I was the big B. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was an M for his friend Morgan. And they're running. So these little letters are running around doing all this sort of shit. And my wife's looking through this, and she's just marveling at it. And she goes, "Oh my God, what an amazing narrative sense he has!" And I was like, I said, "Honey, if I was a carpenter, you wouldn't be surprised he could drive a straight nail."
One of the things that you guys both seem to value is taking on creative challenges and occasionally reinventing approaches or even yourselves. So Brennan, you talked a lot about the ceramics and photography and stuff like that, and Eli and I and all your, your hordes of fans go wild for all the drawings that you post, from film or self-portraits and stuff like that.
Digital paintings. I don't really know what to call them because they're not. I guess they're not a drawing or an illustration. Really, I'm painting the way I would with acrylics.
It's definitely an illustration, man. It's definitely an illustration. You're just not using analog media. That's all. But
So
you're illustrating something.
So is there? Do you?
I'm not even starting with a sketchy outline anymore, though. I'm just going like full chunk paint to chunk in the shapes like if you were oil painting.
Yeah, your process doesn't fucking matter at all. It's what you end up with. What you end up with is an illustration,
Right.
Can you guys imagine a different like configuration of collaboration in terms of creating artwork?
I've had in mind for a long time, and it's just never worked out schedule-wise for us yet, but it will at some point. I have a definite idea of me writing something that he would illustrate alone. So handle both the illustration and the color work. I also imagine me probably doing super, super rough stick figure breakdowns in the very, very, very barest sense that I would then encourage him to, if you think you can change that and make it better, go ahead. If you think it just needs accentuating a little bit, go ahead. If you think it's right the way it is, go ahead,
That's the answer
something
to the
that would
question.
be then more of a true collaboration, rather than him just coloring my work, which is still collaborative, but
That's awesome.
That is the answer to the question that I've wanted to ask you guys for 6 months.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Yeah. It'll happen someday.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Awesome. So Brennan was telling us that some early stuff that you worked on together, kind of like not officially, was actually Behold the Devil. And so as we can segue into that, talking about that, setting up what we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks, months.
Yeah,
probably.
I saw Bren talking about that was that the previous episode?
I think so, yeah.
Brenny, I don't remember that. I don't remember you doing that. That doesn't mean you didn't do it. I got lots of holes in my memory, and for lots of good reasons. But so that you said you did that when we were in Florida. I was giving you some of those to translate. Okay.
Yeah, we did it. We did it out by the pool. I didn't, it's not like I worked on the whole book. It's a pretty long book, but
it was probably only an issue or two if we were down there, because we weren't down there that long. But I know it seemed interminable.
Yeah, I think it amounted to like, I don't know, 10 to 20 pages, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit more about what you did. Yeah, go ahead.
So for those, because those were done in what's called flat color, old style flat color, and so basically had I would just use a Xerox of the page, and I had two different gray markers. One was probably a 40% gray, and one was a 60% gray, and a red. And if you go through and look at that, it's all, as Brennan has described in some of the stuff he's talking about, it's all hard cuts. You know what I mean? There's hardly any fades. Everything is just a block of gray with a severe line or a curve,
Right.
No gradations, no shading, no airbrush effects. And I would just color that straight on these Xeroxes. Have you ever seen old coloring guys from way back in the day? They weren't trying to make art. They were just setting up a schematic for the color separators to translate.
Right.
And so that's what I was doing. Then a production artist at Dark Horse, I don't even know if it was the same guy for the entire series. It might have, been just whoever was available that week of that month. And it was, very easy to translate these into.
Right.
Quite easy. Quite easy for anyone.
I kept them bare and simple for a certain graphic design sort of approach, but also to make this translation from these guides I was doing to the finished product easy on the production dude. I didn't want to.
Yeah, and the word that he's missing here is it's they were vector translations. So anyone who can make like vector shapes in Photoshop or Illustrator could take these marker things that we had done on 8.5 by 11, just Xeroxes, just print offs of these pages. Anyone could take these and then translate them into vector shapes. There's a kitty cat.
to hear you guys talk about Behold the Devil, sometimes you sort of, I think, kind of modestly make it sound like, well, there was so much Hunter demand, we figured why not. But when you put this one next to Devil by the Deed, they're really wonderful end caps to each other.
Well, okay, so it wasn't just demand, as you say there, Ben. It was actually for the 25th anniversary.
Oh.
The 25th anniversary was approaching, and I was speaking to Diana about. She said, "Look, we need a new series for the 25th anniversary. It should be Hunter. It should be you drawing it." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, that sounds right. I should do that." She goes, "And if it's going to be you drawing Hunter for the 25th anniversary, it can't just be a caper. It's got to be something big and important."
Right.
And I thought, oh fuck, I already told all his big and important stuff. So that's when I came up with this, this lost adventure, something that he had deliberately ripped out of his journals, and to my mind made him even more of a big fucking bastard than we knew him to be previously. So.
And you grabbed a character, the cop character, from a story out of Black, White, and Red.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how did you decide to that character again?
Move that into. She has a kind of clandestine relationship with a journalist who manages to unravel Grendel's secret identity. He's actually that character's named after one of my favorite pop culture novel series by a mystery author named John Sanford. Does a series about a character named Lucas Davenport. There's a ton of these. I maybe 30 of these, something like that. And then he's got two other characters that are in the same universe that he often interweaves. Two other series. They're just great, very, very readable adventures. But Lucas Davenport, then I named my character Lucas Ottoman.
Got it. That was an interesting thing I was reading about that the guy wrote about in the Shadow history book that I sent you. I was reading just like all these ways that he was creating the character names. He's just like, I like this book and I like this book, so I'll take the first and last name, boom. And it's just
Yep.
Sometimes
do it.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, where do they come from? Who are you honoring? Who is that person in that person's life? So I love that.
How these heroic names and stuff become timeless. They get recycled.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's exactly. And you're like, oh, I feel like that's familiar or something. Like it is because it's from that story you forgot you read 20 years ago or something.
So is this to say that every time you roll around to a new like year milestone, we're gonna just expect another banger from Hunter? Is that...
Oh sure, I try to anyway.
That'd be great.
Are we coming up on 40? I think next year's 40.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, Eli and I have lots of ideas for you.
That won't be another Rose thing. That'll be the new Grendel Prime series. So
nice.
Nice. Okay.
But the one thing we'll give about that is it takes us in a whole new direction for Grendel. So.
And it takes place in time right after the Odyssey.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Oh, hey, all right. We're cracking the nut here.
Yeah, kinda.
One thing that we noticed having a cursory glance at Behold the Devil is that the storytelling strategies and approaches and devices that you're using are really varied in this. Moves from blood splatter to Hunter's journal to Christine's journal into excerpts from Devil by the Deed and back again. And when you're being innovative, in the last 4 decades, it sometimes seems like you will stick to one key device that you'll continue to play with. I think God and the Devil is a really good example when you do that, like the board meeting, color-coded stuff. And then here it seems like, well, you've collected all these different storytelling strategies and you're unloading them, but it never feels like flashy or like it's too stuffed,
Part of that is also that Hunter as a character is already a very established narrative. People already know him. People know that there's a history of Hunter and that he had journals. So it's not like I'm pulling those things out of my ass. They already exist within the narrative, and weaving them together just kind of seemed to make sense to me. I mean, the other big important thing, of course, about Behold the Devil is we get to find out what happened to Larry. and that's
Right.
never revealed in Devil by the Deed,
Right.
That's the last beat.
That's the last beat.
That's your
Yep.
final
Yep. And
hopeful
a
Larry.
big beat it is. But you were
Yeah.
mentioning there that's how I started the whole thing was I sat down, I was like, what am I gonna, how am I gonna start this off with a splash? How about a 7-page blood splash?
Yeah, it's so good. I'm right on it.
Yep.
I have it as a background on my work.
Yeah, but there's 4 pages that precede it. 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, we get to the.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
You can practically feel the Tarantino massage coming in as you go through those pages.
As the sounds of Steelers' wheel get louder and louder as we get closer and closer.
In fact, the guy that bought that piece of original art there, Eli, asked me if I would color in the red, and I did. I colored in the red for him.
Oh my god, that's insane! Gosh,
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It actually there seems like there's a little bit of a mirror or a foil to things that happen in Brian Lee Sung's arc, where he's excavating Christine's content.
Well, and similarly, we have what I'd have to call an unreliable narrator.
Right.
And
you've always said that about
did
Hunter.
that shit really happen, or Hunter's obviously got a fucked up mind. Was he hallucinating all that? Could have. I'm not going to say one way or the other. I love leaving that open to interpretation. However you want it to be, that's the way it is.
And how important is that in the mysteriousness of a character is, providing all these different things without any solid answer. How important is that to adding to the mystery of a character is adding all these unresolved things.
I love leaving that stuff open, In fact, I was talking with Brennan about we're talking about the Mandalorian, and one of the things I love about the Mandalorian, I mean, they finally had one show up, but no Jedis. And when they finally had one show up, she seemed strange and weird and rare. They talked about her being a sorceress, and the movies devolved into, Jesus, is everybody a fucking Jedi? And
my wife and I are watching the Clone Wars series. It's great.
Yeah.
That's just a better approach to it. But by keeping them rare, you do give them a mystique and a narrative power that is better.
Yeah. For one of the Can I Thwip It album covers, I created the Grendalorian, which was just because that week we was like the Mandalorian came out.
The eyepieces on the helmet. That's
it's
great.
perfect. Yeah, it works perfect.
Not a cash grab.
No. Man, Prime versus Mandalorian would be insane.
I don't want to assume that you guys listen to our every word as we fawn over your life's work. But as we kind of wrap up this Hunter segment, are there specific things that we haven't been talking about that we should, or are there things or themes that we've just fucked up, or just what should we be looking at as we wrap up
you guys did it pretty
coverage?
well. I mean, God, you've dedicated a lot of hours to it at this point. Again, the thing I keep coming back to is every time I come back to Hunter, he's a little more evil than the last time I found him. And that's just me growing older as a creator. When I was 20, he seemed mighty, mighty cool, and he started to seem less cool to me the older I got. I mean, he's still cool, but he's psychotic.
Yes. Did you at first write him with maybe the possibility of some redeeming qualities, and then as you're saying, as you get older,
the redeeming qualities is his love and support of Stacy and his hatred of pedophilia. But even Stacy, the longer I go and the more I portray it, that starts to seem more self-aggrandizing and manipulative.
Right.
Not as selfless as it first seemed.
In this read through, I was fairly surprised to find how much more interesting I thought Stacy was as a character and how pivotal. And then even get in that little chunk in the shadow saying that he fell in love with it was Palumbo. It was like the Palumbo
Yes, yeah,
lineage.
yeah.
And so maybe he fell in love with Sophia and then again saw that spark in Stacy.
Yeah. So the implication is possibly Sophia is Stacy's great aunt or grandmother, or again, I don't really nail it down, but something is there.
And we were talking about it in that episode. She's certainly got that spark.
For sure.
They both do.
But also, Sophia just horribly, horribly betrays him. And the last line of Shadow or Grendel versus the Shadow is, and I know she, meaning Stacy, would never betray me. Dum, dum, dum.
And she does.
Ah, man, yeah. And Brennan, you said like even by not killing her, he set in
his own
play.
doom. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so many things.
Yep.
One of the craziest Stacy moments that we came across in the anthology shorts was like a reverie that Stacy has during the Jay Geldof story, where she imagines herself as Hunter's wife.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so like it's like so striking that I think it gave us both a double take.
Well, wouldn't she?
I suppose so.
She didn't grow up with him. He's not her family member.
Right.
He's a relatively new.
And they're fairly close in age, really, when you think about it.
Somewhat, but I mean, children fantasize about all sorts of shit, including romantic and sexual shit, even before they're pubescent. And it just seemed to me like that would happen. My favorite line in that Jay Geldof story is when Arjun actually gets some blood on their coverlet of her bed, and she's like, "No, you have to soak that in cold water."
Right.
Uncle Hunter taught me that.
in iodine.
Hunter
I think it
taught her
is.
how to get blood out of shit.
Those lifelong lessons that you need.
Yeah.
Sick.
Good.
Awesome. Yeah.
We can't wait to get into this story. It's like everything else is just prologue, and for me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Another thing too.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun working on this one. It was Ben, you were talking about the throwing together all the storytelling styles. I just felt like I had free reign again because of the already established depth and amount of narratives about Hunter. I mean, it started off with a pretty what's the word I'm looking for? A pretty constrained viewpoint of that story, in the Devil by the Deed, that we eventually opened up and broadened up, because the implication there is that there are all these other adventures that are untold happening between the gutters, between the captions.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
And again, I just felt like I had all that sitting in front of me, and I could open it up. And by having a character who slowly unravels Grendel's secret, I could expose you to stuff. Like for instance, that's the first time I talk about the fact that Hunter carries that cane around in the day and an age when carrying a walking stick was not a fashion statement like it used to be. And I point out that he walks with a slight limp, which is fake. But it's part of his disguise.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit, I think.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Without remembering every detail.
Because
there's always something new to mind.
Yeah. And I mean, he probably enjoys that same mystery and intrigue style of pulp novel that he grew up with. I would guess that's like his inspiration too in writing his books.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's another. It just occurred to me. There's another character in Behold the Devil that's in the Black, White, and Reds. It's his editor,
Locucius.
Locucius, yeah.
And Toro, isn't it also?
Oh, Toro's in there too. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Very briefly. Yep.
Yeah. Locucius that's my favorite anthology story. His cocaine fueled rise and fall.
Yes.
Can we ask?
Oh, right. That's a great one.
Can we ask you? And oh my God, the airbrushing is insane. Can we ask you about? I guess both of you about working with Diana, and perhaps like what story input she has, and we talked a little bit about collaborating with people that you like versus some editor, like some 27-year-old assistant editor elsewhere. So
Brandon,
what?
you want to start with that? One of your first jobs was working for Diana.
I mean, yeah, my first accredited publication is with Diana, and it's for the Art of Grendel hardcover, the big, nice hardcover.
Love it.
And I was working as an editorial assistant.
An
Whatever.
intern,
I was her assistant. Yeah, so I was her assistant, and it basically meant that I counted the pages and made sure they were in order. But I also got to do just a little bit of art selection for the book because I was intimate with the subject matter.
She seems like a person who no bullshit is like an understatement for the way that she works.
Oh yeah.
I love that about. I love that in someone like a collaborator. You need that, and especially coming in a family sensibility, it's probably even less bullshit because there's no.
Of course,
pretension.
Diana was my editor before she was part of the family.
Yeah.
We started working together. Well, actually, our very first interaction was when she lived in Berkeley. She worked for the now defunct Comics and Comics, right? And yep, and she did a in-store magazine for them called The Telegraph Wire. Because it was all set on Telegraph Avenue. He's going to go grab his copy. There it is.
She sent it to me actually after we did the wizard thing.
Right
she just was like, "I got something for you."
And she called to interview me, and I did that cover for her. And then Bob Schreck, her boyfriend at the time, later husband, came to work for Kamiko, and Kamiko eventually hired her as well. So all of a sudden we were working together all the time. And before too long, she kept trying hard to hook me up with her sister. She kept saying, Barb, I want you got to meet Matt. You got to meet Barb. And we were both so resistant. It was like, I don't want to meet your fucking crazy sister. I don't want to meet your goddamn comic book friends, But then, then we became family, and it really didn't change our working relationship that much. Now, Diana, you talked about story input there. Diana's just notoriously hands off when it comes to that with creators. She doesn't really get into that. If she feels something is terribly, terribly not working, she'll tell you. But if you look at the crop of creators she generally works with, they're not going to be making those kind of mistakes. Right. But she's absolutely unforgiving and exacting when it comes to being honest, being on time. I remember, and I won't name names here, but we during the long initial run of Grendel there at Kamiko, we had one creator who was just behind all the fucking time, and just full of the stupid ass, explanations, and he was obviously lying about something, And I remember she called him once to give him grief about, why aren't those pages coming in, or why haven't I got those pages yet? And he said, well, it's been really tough. Next week's Halloween. And she was just like, are you fucking kidding me? What are you, 12?
Oh my God.
So yeah, she suffers no fools when it comes to that kind of stuff. But she and I have clashed. We've had our clashes over the years, but the ruffled feathers always get smoothed fairly. We're constantly arguing about. She tends to want stuff very grammatically correct, and I keep trying to point out to her that idioms and that ain't the way people speak, And we used to argue all the time about the use of the word funner. She's like, no, it's more fun. I said, yeah, but more fun is less fun than funner.
There's a word in this very first issue. Christine describes Hunter as tsunamic.
Tsunamic, yeah.
Tsunamic, and I was like, oh, it might be a word. It might be a word he coined.
Tsunami-like.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
like a tidal wave,
Yeah. When I read
my wife just said that's what you called her at her wedding.
Say it again.
Tsunamic.
Yeah, Celeste just said that's what you called her in your wedding speech.
That's funny.
Oh, that's right, I did. Yes, Celeste, you too are a tsunamic personality.
Oh, that's awesome.
As readers, it's has an incredible meta quality to have these conversations with you guys, because we met you through fiction 20 years ago. And so it's really hard to not see Diana and Bob and all these other people as those characters who we didn't, as teenagers, we didn't even know that they were.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know the jig. We weren't like plugged into comics.
No, well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
You know?
If you know the behind the scenes, it makes it a little extra juicy.
Right.
But it has to work just as a narrative and a character itself, without like, for instance, in Mage the Hero Defined, Bob Schreck is the giant Bart Gretsch, and Shrek fucking hates the band Kiss, so I gave him a Kiss t-shirt. I'll never forget when I showed him that page. Boy, he gave me a wallop. I laughed. He's like, "You fucker."
He's got a real larger than life personality, so it really fits.
Yeah.
The giant thing.
Oh, that's good. She talked. Diana talked about that. She did a speaking appearance recently, and I went on to the Zoom, and I said something about editing and the great unpublished Grendel novel and stuff. And she was like, "Yeah, I just didn't think it was good," and I told him that. And
he's right. It's not. Overwriting. I'm not really a prose writer. There comes a stage in your creative youth where you just feel your creativity is going to be applicable to any direction, any medium, and eventually you realize that's not quite true. Some people can make it work, but
did you complete like a full length novel and then?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I forget what it was supposed to be. 80 to 100,000 words, I think, something like that.
Wow.
Again, there might be a copy buried in my incredibly messy storage closet over there, but I couldn't tell you for sure. And of course, it was never on digital.
Right.
It was never saved in a digital format. So,
did you feel like that as an experience was one that helped you learn and
Sure.
get better? Yeah.
Sure, man. You learn by failing.
Right.
My entire career has been that. I always tell young hopefuls, I was like, you got to fuck it up first. You gotta make the mistakes first. And I was in a situation where I was making all my first mistakes in print. I was making them all. I didn't explode on the scene fully formed. Like somebody like let me point to Dave Stevens. Dave's first work from the first things he published was just pristine looking. We never got to see his missteps along the way. You got to see all of mine.
I mean, I think that's inspiring and part of what makes your work accessible and inspiring to creators. Like when I found it, you could see the growth throughout the generations, especially in the three parts of Mage now.
Yeah,
looking
absolutely.
back, it's like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, most distinctly there in that first one, there's just a clear.
Right. You even said from issue
15
one.
issues. Yeah.
For sure. Love it. Love that. Well, cool. This has been great. I think maybe the next time that we'll convene will be, we already had Tim Sale and Diana say that they would be interested in coming in to talk about Devil Child. So that's the next book after this Behold the Devil. So that's going to be a super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a pretty book.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I mean, it's tough. The subject matter, it's not easy.
Getting back to Diana there for a second, that's one thing. A lot of editors, a lot of people that write about film want to be filmmakers. A lot of editors want to be creators themselves. And Diana has always claimed that is not what she wants. But she had a few instances, a few stories she wanted to tell, that being one of them.
I love that short story that the Pander brothers drew of hers, like the jazz club. That was
at the jazz club. Yep. Mm-hmm. There was another one pager. I was telling somebody about this just the other day. She did that Bernie Miro illustrated, where she had this dream about, because she has long hair and has always had long hair her entire life, real hippie girl, and she had this dream of somebody cutting her hair, and she had this long Rapunzel-like hair, and somebody was cutting it continually, Wow. And so I have this ongoing thing that I've always given my kids grief about, in that I'm somebody that doesn't remember my dreams at all, like at all. I mean, I know I dream, you dream, that happens, but I don't place any significance in my dreams at all. To my mind, they are like your brain farting. It's your brain like expelling some shit that it needs to get rid of, and it does it in images and personal memories and such. Right. And just like farting, it's utterly vital to your health, but I don't really give it any more significance than my farts. I don't think about it any longer than I do my fart. Yeah. And so she has this whole thing about the dream, and it goes on this meandering thing about, somebody cutting her hair. And the last panel is a circular panel of me. And she goes, but when I told my brother-in-law about it, it's me going, nothing more boring than somebody else's dreams.
Brennan, do you
man.
dream? Do you fart in your sleep as well?
Oh, I find that when I smoke marijuana, which is often and always, I don't remember my dreams at all.
Yeah.
I wake up and instantly they are gone. And like he said, I'm sure that I'm dreaming because you have to dream to just retain your sanity and function. But
my wife is the exact opposite. She's a vivid and vigorous dreamer, and she always wants to tell me every fucking dream. Or
when I quit smoking for a month there during COVID, I had some violent dreams.
Jesus.
Terrible. I would sweat through all my sheets and stuff. It was terrible.
Wow.
But generally, I don't really remember my dreams. No, I just
Or Barb will say to me, I was so mad at you in my dream last night. I was like, yeah, it didn't happen, honey.
I've had that too. And they wake up and they're mad. I'm like, what?
She gets actual anxiety over her dreams. She lets them rule her life.
Yep.
Mine are fucking crazy. I hang out with Robin Williams for like 45 minutes at a time. I've done that twice.
And do you remember the whole conversation and everything, or?
I have super fucking vivid dreams, and I'll wake up and I'll post dream journal Facebook posts just for my own archive.
Yeah.
And they're just what I found is that the people that you obsess over, you'll meet in your dreams. And so and
the
so I sort
that's over too, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I realized that people that talk about Jesus they have relationships with him are probably dreaming of Christ.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that kind of makes a lot of, I remember when
it feels very, very real to them, obviously.
Yeah. When I was a big Cerebus head, I dreamt that I met Sim at a hotel, at a very fancy hotel bar, and he wouldn't look at my pages until I bought him whiskey. Go figure.
So you don't feel like, Matt, dreams or something like that is part of where you get an inspiration for your writing or stories at all?
Not at least, no.
And
in fact, Ben was mentioning there having a dream journal. People always tell me, oh, well, just, when you wake up, write down your dreams and you'll remember them. And I'm just like, yeah, I have no interest in that. I don't really care. So,
if I had your waking mind, I wouldn't even. Who cares about your dreams?
I guess nothing plus nothing is nothing.
Although I will say, when I wake up, if I wake up at night, after sleeping a couple hours, I'll wake up, and if I can't get right back to sleep, if I can't roll over and just fall right back to sleep, I start weaving stories. I start trying to figure out, the next issue or what I'm working on, because I'm almost in utero. I'm laying. I'm still. It's dark. I can. If I'm on my side, I'm almost in a fetal position. I'm absolutely unengaged with the world, other than my mind trying to figure out these stories. I used to find that I would do that sometimes when I swam too. Although these days I'm swimming so much, I have to kind of pay attention to my laps and all that sort of stuff. But when I would swim, I would try and come up with stories at the same time because I'm kind of just disengaged.
The shower is a great place for.
Yeah, same.
I was just gonna say, in the shower, I often come up with stuff, and I get very meditative in the shower, but I also get meditative and think about work and life and all kinds of stuff when I'm out there casting the fly.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we do these things. All those things provide a Zen calm that lets us focus on, lets us break away from the the mundanacity of everyday life and think about things that think about things that spark our imaginations.
Yeah. Keep it going. And while it's going, it's the spark plug that keeps getting the ideas going, and then the engine of creativity continues. Beautiful, man. Thank you guys so much for coming. There is the last question though that we ask Matt every time he comes. What's for dinner tonight?
Oh.
Oh, here we go.
I got out of the freezer some African peanut soup I made a while ago. So it's carrots and sweet potatoes and peanut butter and stock and onions and spice. But then I'm also making homemade roti. You know what roti is? It's
It's like a
kind of African
chicken
bread.
pocket. Yeah.
Yep.
Yours points. I'm making good food too, but that sounds really good. The homemade roti.
What are you making, bro?
I have a bunch of leftover parsley and cilantro, so I'm making chimichurri,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna grill up some chicken thighs, and I'm gonna make tacos. I have taco stuff, and so I'm gonna make chimichurri tacos with avocado and radishes that I'll pickle.
I keep me to tell you, I experimented a little bit recently with Korean style tacos. They turned out terrific. You should try those.
No.
You know what I mean? With like a Korean marinade that you know.
Mhm.
With it, like
Sounds
and chopped cabbage on top, just delicious. I'm not a big kimchi fan, so I don't use kimchi, but you easily could.
While we did this, my wife was making jelly donuts.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
for Hanukkah.
Homemade jelly donuts. Oh man.
Yeah.
Come on over.
We did a nice latke riff this year where we did African latkes with like a kind of like a curry sauce
Ooh.
with like a berry aioli, and
Ooh.
then did green onion latkes with a basil aioli to
Ooh,
kinda
cool.
spin it up. A
Oh.
little bit.
I've been soon on my menu. I've been wanting to do because I saw somebody do it on TV. A latke and then just a little pile of crab salad on top.
Oh
So
my gosh.
crab with so you get the cold crab salad on top of the hot crispy potato.
Oh,
Really
that's
nice. Yeah,
So good.
really
Not
nice.
kosher
Yeah.
or anything, but
We've been watching like an insane amount of episodes of Guys Grocery Games and Chopped.
oh,
And
It was
So-
on Guys grocery games that I saw somebody do that latke. So
oh my gosh.
although she did
We-
sweet potato latke, I'll
We've
probably
just been burning through them like crazy. It's insane how many episodes we've gone through.
Oh, I haven't even seen that first one, guys. Grocery games.
Well, and next time
Oh,
I
yeah,
get
it's
back,
like-
I'll
it's
tell you
like-
guys what I made for Christmas. So
Ah, yeah.
you saw you
What?
saw the thing I posted online about Thanksgiving, how I did that the galantine where I completely deboned a whole chicken.
I did.
Yeah, that
yes.
looks great,
Yeah.
Pop. That looked really great.
Yeah, it turned out super cool.
I had just read the comic from Diana's book where you talked about making chicken parm, and then you did that like a few days after I had just read that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like that.
And I can't remember.
like
Did I say it?
instruction.
I've had so many people say to me, "Hey, I made your chicken parm. It turned out great. Hey, I make your chicken parm all the time." You know? But my
great.
favorite one was I was at a con somewhere and I was signing and I had a line of people in front of me and some dude comes by and he just leans over my table and knocks on my table. He didn't really want a signature, but I looked up and he goes, "Dude, your chicken parmesan, good for the love life." I was
Oh,
like,
that's amazing.
Well, now I'm
And
hungry. And
speaking
horny.
of the love life,
"There's the tsunamic, Celeste,
here's my wife.
my daughter-in-law. How you doing?
Hi, it's good to see you.
All snowed in.
Yeah,
You,
I mean,
not us.
it's melting.
It's almost gone. It'll be gone by tomorrow or the next day. for
Oh,
sure.
really? It's gonna warm up that
Yeah.
much? Okay. Well, good. At least it's that's what I try to describe to people is snow's pretty for about the first 20 hours.
Yeah,
And then it
Oh,
starts
yeah.
to get
Here, much
much
less.
less. Yeah.
For
Yeah, it
first
gets
10
brown
minutes,
pretty
maybe,
quick.
yeah. And then it's
we went out this
brown.
morning to walk Louie and get coffee, and it was stupid.
Today on my journey to the fly fishing store, my boots got filled with water. My like hardy boots, just because there's these deceptive puddles all over New York of like sludge
Groundhog Day puddles.
stuff.
Yeah. Watch out. That
Yeah.
first step's a doozy.
Nice reference. One of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
So good. Man, I'll tell you though, look at night looking up into
See that?
that like snow coming
I'm still
down.
working.
There's nothing better than that.
Nice, Celeste.
That is amazing.
Yeah, no, I've had some
I
nice
miss
snow
that.
moments. When I lived in Montreal with my wife, I have some. We were freshly married, and I have some beautiful memories of us walking home from a restaurant. And there's just this
That's
blanket of
beautiful.
soft snow coming down.
Yeah.
But the older I get, the more it just becomes a nuisance that I don't really care to deal with. So
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Again, Vivat Grendel. Keep on Grenolin. Thanks for everything, Matt and Brennan.
Yeah, Eli, you got to come up with like a hand like Grendel song,
Oh my God.
like a gangster that you can like throw up.
I'll work on it. Yes. All right, guys. Thank you again so much.